check back with us for more upcoming programs. So we've got a lot going on. We've moved operations online. The biggest thing we have currently going on is, I'm going to share a link with you. If I sound slightly distracted while I'm talking, it's because I am, because I'm going to share this link to our Big Read events, woodlandpattern.org/big-read. So we've got a NEA Big Read programming, a series of programs around Stephanie Burt's Advice from the Lights, wonderful poetry collection out a few years ago from Grey Wolf Press. So that, among many other things, but that'll be taking place now through June. In addition to the events, we're also giving away free copies of that book, in particular to folks in the Milwaukee area. So if you're interested, please be in touch and visit, click that link. In order to create the greatest possible access to our programming, we've been presenting our events on a give what you can basis. So with this in mind, I'm gonna share with you another link. And if you're in a position to do so, might click through that link, that is a link to donate, again, if you're able to and so inclined. So thank you so much, and really thank you just for being here, which is the best form of support. And then last thing I'm gonna chat at you is information for our book center manager, Peter Brzezinski, because we are still open. So we have contactless pickup, and of course we can mail books. And so for more information about that, to purchase books by Elena, by Dominique, and by others, please be in touch with Peter, and thank you for that support as well. Okay, I think that's about enough of me talking, except to say that following this, we will have a question and answer sort of conversational portion of the evening. So please, if you have thoughts, questions, hold on to those, and we'd love to hear from you. For the reading, it would be wonderful if you might turn your video off. It's maybe going to be a little weird, but we're doing this, we're taking certain measures to preserve bandwidth so as to try to avoid any disruptions during individual readings. Just to let you know why we're doing that. During the question and answer portion, we would love to see you all and have you turn your video on, and then we can all talk. Thank you for doing that. And of course, if you could remain muted during the readings as well. So, okay. So I'm going to turn things now over to a recording of Elias Sepulveda, who's going to introduce Dominique Salas.
Dominique Salas was born in El Paso, Texas. Her work, Unoriginal Danger, was released by Trembling Pillow Press in 2020. Dominique Salas's dazzling writing is ambitious and successful at capturing all the complexities and contours of being a marginalized writer today. Salas's voice is remarkably ingenious in the way it navigates light-weighted moments such as binge-watching anime and more profound, heavier testimonies of abuse. Salas's voice speaks so much to our current woman, but more importantly, it calls attention to how tragically disempowered and silenced we are. Even though we belong to this world and to this particular moment, it's only as much as we are permitted. But Salas refuses this premise, and with lyric and fang, carves out our agency, regardless of what you think. Please welcome the talented Dominique Salas.
All right, that was so kind. What a nice introduction. So I want to thank everyone who's on here Zooming. That was really sweet of everyone to come on. I want to thank everyone who at Woodland Pattern who helped put this reading together. I really am thankful that you invited me to read tonight. I also wanted to preface with a few things really quickly before jumping in. The first is I want to give a content warning because some of the content in Unoriginal Danger I'm exclusively reading from the book tonight, is violent, in sexual graphic ways at times. And I do want to also warn you that there is reference to self-harm very early on in the reading. So I just want everyone to be aware of that going into the reading. I also usually don't translate Spanish, but for the sake of the reading, I wanted to translate a few words. So tía is aunt, puta is slut, andando de puta means kind of like slutting around, and cariños means like affections, the way that you kind of show your affections to someone. They're not really going to inhibit the reading very much, but novio comes up a few times, and that means boyfriend. And I think that's, let's see, but besides that, the form of the book is one long poem divided into 3 parts. So I'm going to be basically reading without stopping very much. I read basically a scene from the beginning of the book, and then I read 3 meditative pieces about that. The last 3 pieces are dedicated to people that really helped me, be able to write the book, because I couldn't have done it without them. So I'll start off now. Yeah. Order in the cast of bullet points and subheadings salivate, catching my body learning its borders. Tidy credibility shakes itself visible. A violence polishes itself warm. This is not yours. Imagine, I'd lacquer myself, a wide-eyed gloss as yours truly. That's how this started, by the way. In trying to commit suicide too often. The easiest way was a slow way, and the slowest way was by having some men take over my life. Often, my brother reminds me, this too was a decision. In accepting that, are these his or his rules, or do I just love him? My brother reminds me that this too was a decision. I tell myself the story again about what my flesh means. He wanted me to whir, a vacuum accessible between my legs, a femme machine. I don't think I did this on purpose, but almost novio Fernie left me at this Fat Tuesday party. And when Jacob something spoke, a reality glowed into actuality. Beard gristle against my ear, the words, Oye gordita, ¿me quieres? This was a chance. I ordered my synapses to cure my hetero Q and Hennessy. I could lap dance into a reasonably priced castle built for 2. But now I'm stuck here in a bathroom, some dude outside in the hallway knocking on my door. Yo, are you okay? I'm just trying to thumb through the evidence left in neural excerpts. This is important. I need to be good now. Retrace my inclination when seeing the male reply to my silhouette in shadowy spaces. This next excerpt I will preface really briefly, because I realized after writing the book who some of the audience might be, and I realized that all of the men who are committing acts of violence for a large part of the book are men of color. And I thought about, the environment and the rhetoric that's going around men of color, especially Latino men, being rapists when I was first writing this book, because that sound clip had just come out from Trump. And I knew that I didn't have an obligation to really defend anyone, or from either the way that some audiences might be making assumptions of men of color. But I also didn't have any obligation to write that as part of my story, but I ended up still writing something about it. So this is it. Jacob something, Fernie, and I originated from the same polyp of panaderias and food markets, hands excavating in the grocery store barrels of raw and hard frijoles. True, but others may see our brownness and typecast us as brute bad hombres and the sloppy girl with her hoops on. Others see us as the coked keys, the multi-paint trucks, and dirt lawns, crowns of grass weaseling their way through tarping. All of this just because this book's bodies do not have room for your whiteness. Among red paper cups on tables, Jacob something waved, ignored. Around him, the frat boy militia forgot themselves as pliable before a factory stamped into them, "No llores, little man," puffing them out into a canned display of mercurial swagger and intent, unoriginal danger. Rid of Puff Boy Fernie, I wound Mardi Gras beads to choker my neck. I wanted a mouthful of fatty foods with Jacob something, the gorging, devout, and provoking before the fast. The last door open in the hallway, he and RD were on the bed with a mare marbled with coke. Jacob something screamed as RD fell onto the mare, the bed sewn with shards. I slid to the crook of his arm. Another home, not mine, awaited with beer pong and prospects. The almost novio Fernie had asked to be the novio, while I drove to bars, poker nights, bailing him out of jail, but he had driven me to the party. When Waka Flocka Flame told me to do it with no hands, I tried to party, but he saw me go feral cat wild with my ass on Jacob something and company. So after Jacob something dropped his girlfriend off at home, I was welcome to go back to his friend's house. They called it the castle, and I entered, and I peed, and I washed my hands, and he walked in and switched the lock of the door, and he kissed me, and it was good. And it was good when he lifted me onto the sink, but then we went into the bedroom, the one with shards. And there was where I wanted to go with the almost novio, but I did not get to. Face, wet shards, knees on the sheets, sun rising outside, a voice saying, "What did you expect?" Do you trust me, clothed or unclothed? Here is a secret for down payment, just in case. Western films erasure violence. Men did the composing then. Ooze of sunset, cue for the shootout, ambush, snatching of morsels and or women. There's a violence that becomes ennui. If Westerns followed suit of our lives, daybreak would be the omen. Sun signaling preparation for the day, despite its fussy undoing. The finesse of our days is interpreted as without grit. I drove home that dawn. Okay, these last three poems are for besides my family who helped me write the whole book, but they're dedicated to three specific people. And the first is for the women in my MFA program who really helped me kind of challenge what I thought masculinity's role was in everything that had happened. And I don't think I would have been able to find myself in the way I did without them. So this is for them. A circle of women gather at a table to speak of other women and infidelity and partners, and using the word evil and the words bad person And the words, well, not like a real bad person. And I wonder how I was a bad person. It was all in the argument of my artistry, my period of performance, that phase into which I was into giggling, whoa, who the fuck am I? And sitting in a kitchen drunk, asking if people would please give me their pizza crust because I'm lactose intolerant, and who didn't order the pizza that I wanted with extra sauce and no cheese. See, yes, that was me. It still is. But consoling Fernie that he was nothing like his abusive father, while then taking him into the bathroom and then lap dancing on Jacob something, that was not me. Technically it was, but it was not the healthiest me. In some dimension, it might have been that I could have been a healthy me then. Then I only knew that commitment was what mattered. The commitment to be that girl at the party. You know, that girl. Do you? Because if you do, I feel like I should have something to say, so you should tell me. While I blink pensively here, eating chips at this table of every woman. Everyone has a different image of that girl. But she is facts. Like the fact that that girl might only be that girl because of her possession of a clit, or an absence of one, or maybe because of her shimmery queerness. That girl could also have skin presenting as butterscotch candy or some other molasses sweet getting sucked into disappearance in a mouth. It's funny now, me wanting to be that girl. As myself, I was her already, always. Okay. The second to last poem is for my abuelita, who is obviously the goat, who taught me a lot about masculinity, but never in commentary, always through stories that she would tell me, because like she would never condemn it outright, but the stories she told me were just like, they were gruesome and cruel. So she actually taught me a lot now that I look back at it. During commercial breaks, Abuelita retold a story I was already told, not by her, but by myself, in a way. But really, she had told me the story before. In her rural town outside of Chihuahua, her tia was reassigned from male hands to dirt. La violaron. Literally, men had violated her. For this, her wrists were tied and bound to a cart, so that when her father cracked the whips against the horse's rear, her body would gallop bloody behind the cart. Some of her body stayed clotted in dirt. In all my Americanized bochaness now, her story is a bodily grammar that has dusted me off. La violaron. He violated her. His body acted in conflict. Él la violó, her, in which the vacancies of flesh were taken as a request. The violation was in his thinking he could take, like a child appraising bulk candy as free. Violation's root was before the act. If she was a survivor, then her defining moment was the wound of time behind a cart. Really, we were putas in waiting, sopping in anticipation. You know she was a puta when she was on her deathbed to them. They had decided before that moment of violation. What I'm flailing to ask is, what story was my body made to stretch? What narrative? Whose timeline? Before the cart, after the cart, she was the same in a toss of their finger-oiled coins. La violaron por andando de puta. Andando de puta riding a horse like a man. Andando de puta when saying, me vale madre, when told to cross my legs. Que se me ve la cocina. Andando de puta, winding on everyone's lap at that party. Por andando de puta me violaron. Nunca me gustado decirlo, pero I found it's the principle of my body's matter. We were always that girl, and there is too much of that I can never own. Okay, so this is the last poem. This is dedicated to the man I married. He passed away about a month ago, and I used to get really sick writing this book. Now I understand why, because maybe I shouldn't have been writing the book then. But he would take me to get ice cream or things that I wouldn't think would matter, but they mattered. And so again, he's another person that kind of helped me find myself while I was writing this. At first, I allotted 2 poems to girdle my rapes. There they were, space on a glowing screen, or almost negligible weight printed onto a paper in people's hands. But there was so much more. But that's my always inclination. More, more, more. Wave arms, gesture attention to my body, my voice, which is still pressured vibrations of my body's insides. I gave myself a chance. Hear her out. Maybe she's changed. Passing the 2 poems became a warning of an unjust exorcism. If I were to edit them for fear of readers' confusions, which were the most rapey? And during Law & Order SVU marathons, I say, the one in which I don't remember the man entering the room. But then I realized my body itself has its own memory, affecting my cariños. Like when the sweet one surprised me, rounding a corner in our own home, and tapped my ass while entering the living room. Mouth circled, I was not there anymore. I was shards across our bed for minutes before snaking under covers to tell him he scared me. And it's not his fault. And he says sorry, but I don't want sorry. And the next night he asked me if I would like to have sex. And I was glad he asked, because he asked. My body too, in its thawing joints. Hello. Hi. Mucho gusto. It's a pleasure to meet myself again and again between memories of a body and a voice. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dominique. I really appreciate that. Okay, so now I'm going to turn things over once more to a recording of Elias Sepulveda.
Elena Rivera was born in Mexico City, Mexico, and grew up in Paris, France. Rivera was a recipient of the National Endowment for the Arts Literature Fellowship in Translation. Rivera's work Scaffolding was published in 2017 by Princeton University Press. Rivera's poetry is mesmerizing. Rivera's voice both reveals and conceals the inner structure of the created world. Rivera takes a form like the sonnet, and where we see concise tightness and limitation, Rivera sees the potential to demonstrate the powerful complexities of the poetic voice. Rivera writes that the seed first of negative space, filled with figures, had to be primed with the light-weighted coats, men and women cold in the flurry. Rivera's mastery of form, content, and delivery is a sight to behold. Elena Rivera's work offers both writers and readers a significantly fresh approach to poetry. Please welcome Elena Rivera.
You're muted, hold on. There you are.
Okay, thank you, Elias. Thank you, muchas gracias. That was beautiful. So I'd like to just start with reading some sections of scaffolding, a few pages, and then move in the second part to some new writing. I want to make sure to thank Mike Wen, who just organized this so well, and also Roberto Harrison for inviting me. And Dominique, that I'm a little bit bowled over because that was such a wonderful reading. Thank you. It's really a pleasure to read with you. So I decided that I wanted to pick the poems in the book that are the most about New York, because it's a different New York than what we have now. And I wanted to get back to that place. When I wrote this book my intention was to write a sonnet a day for a year, and it didn't quite work out that way. Some sonnets just had to be trashed and other reasons, but they are dated for that day. Sometimes if I revise them so much on another day, then the date is crossed out and it's another day. So September 3rd, after Jacques Roubaud. She likes to write her sonnets on LaSalle Street, where the saw keeps her company, and her words on this great city stage are nothing concrete. Just a door that swings open, wings flap. The birds eat her sandwich in Central Park, very near the Delacorte, where the play is midsummer. Though it's no longer June, light now disappears on the crowd who eat and drink by the river. All disappear afterwards south to Times Square, where living means the dare of the night shift, like the poets and their stupendous affair with St. Mark's, the Bowery, and catching a rift. Here, there, herself, the sound of the city's flare as the lines shift, and she sets her lines adrift. So this is July 14th. From 80 LaSalle. Dawn in the city, windows wide open, wham, slam, screams. Now scaffolding confronts this hometown. Trash smashed, strollers, birds, doors opening and closing. Here happens all day, tending to tones sounding in our ear. Beep! Vehicle backs into the street, veers round the corner. Listen, take note of this city waking, summer moistened with sirens, syncopated noise. Beats anticipate stress as skyscrapers vibrate. All's well, you say, all's here. A car idles, shakes, feeds the vertigo. Water the balcony's garden, hear children, hear the blaring radio counterpoint to the modest breeze this morning. Back inside then, at the desk, the sawed railings of the poem. August 12th, with Wordsworth. What a surprise, the fresh breeze, noticing it. Golden euphoria, and wham, a strong wind, ever ready behind small experience. Words will latch onto air if you let them, grab, burrow their way, stick, have you think that you are it. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and the sweat drips. The shirt clings to memory, clings, years ago, and when you least expect it, it all comes back. I am at a window, elated by the sky, the moment where lights branched out and I was small, a day where fireworks competed with lightning. We in the big city, in our huge smallness, rushing in and out of the bodega for beer and chips, cigarettes, and a real celebration. August 19th. This year tangled up in last year transported, the mistake we make of time occurring, future fast forwarding, never quite finding, ladybugs, all we can ask of the living, and of sonnets when they get claustrophobic. Always have to have a very high idea of what we do, how we end up being time. Do we tell others what, or do we write words? This year lived in expectations, nothing I could wear, and the past has a way of catching. Summer sky can be very blue, the day cold. Picked up mistakes one by one, can you blame me? There were no rules, no regulations, nothing. No wonder I felt trapped by the lack of them. January 18th, the inauguration. After the celebrations, patience with cold, snow in New York, the economy is in your face, friend. Lost your job, and another young man in the subway, HIV, and thrown out, thrown into the market where another works at 2, uptown and midtown. Minimum wage is $7.15, I see. At the cleaners, I read that the death toll rose to 1,000 in the Holy Land. It is heavy with it, and I've made some tea, 9:30 a.m., and it stops snowing. I can't write a Frank O'Hara poem, so I won't try for insouciance, though snow lands and a plane lands softly in the middle of the Hudson. So now I'm going to read some things that I've written this year. The first is in kind of 3 prose sections, and it's called Field of. Hand over the hour, a lot autumn with new terrain, said nothing, everything new, untried, furniture, strange. Ford pardoned Nixon, arrived young, full of stamina at the terminus, the United States, where everything was packaged in plastic and measurements were needed for all the space, all the burning, all the black and white. Sunken living room, upright piano, dark room, Lucy discovered in Ethiopia. Family poised at their stations, father reading the papers, mother angry about cooking, children cleaning, each exertion in their separate territory. In a pre-war high-rise apartment, steps down into a living room. The Vietnam War continues. Carpet, phone, steps down into the living room theater, memories most clumsy. She has a good ear, said the piano teacher. Watching from the window, passers-by below, watching black and white samurai movie with mother late at night. World population reaches 4 billion. Phone call, girl alone, Ali defeats Foreman. Phone rings, girl answers. Hello? Male voice. Silence. Are you alone? Silence. What are your measurements? Hesitation. What? How old are you? Pause. 13. Silence. How big are your breasts? Felt rude to hang up. What? Zardas with parents. What are your measurements? I didn't understand that movie. I don't know. Just tell me. Silence. Phone to her ear. Why do you want to know? Heavy breathing. Tell me. Breathing. I'm going to hang up the phone. Friend listened to Barry White. Hanging up the phone. Heard the ding. Then silence. Heard in her head. What are your measurements? Ding. Who was that who called? Why did he want to know? First word processor. The words echo. The line. An instant. The pattern she would come across again. In America. Autumn in new terrain. This is called hand renditions. Hand hangs down, one finger hidden. Durer's hand droops down, solitary, heavy, empty, not reaching out to anyone. Fustigate myself for it often enough. Pencil squeezed between fingers, lead shades shaped the study of a broken, heaving body after hearing of the deported. Fabiola, Pili, Francisco, Maritza, Pablo, Mateo, Maynor, Osman, Vladimir, Angel, Gabriel, Jesus, Luis, Jimena, Kenya, Estefani, Yata, Kiazolu, Mahai, Joanna, Jose, Nelly. Faint whistle blows in the heart. Thin maples sway in the dense city streets. Bodies swirl in the sea or howl in air-conditioned rooms. Activists carry the message of shadows behind blistering walls where no hands reach. Because at its origin, a flight from terror, which tests the cells of being. Just three more. This is called Drawn to Days as Numbers. Wilderness in the soul can promise assuagement, said the painter. Instead of being drawn to numbers on a map, darkness was light, and light, halation. On the map of her city, Forsythia carries into the future our present here. Azaleas, bleeding heart, tulips, turn whirring, the act of shaking into a green animal, not to let fear get the best. Choke, an animal self in an apartment, a fly walks in zigzags, here, know where to go. Daffodil. Circular dream, it said, seen from the window, bright physical craft. The leaves too, green and what yellow, orange. I remember the dream. What gesture, wild, rises through acrylic dreams, shapes the cry of sirens, bright cruelty of facts. What contrast to beauty. Turn the attention to it, the bright physical fact, here among the solitary. And I'll just finish with this one. For the rest of us, in the global direction, except that it has no meaning, belief of we think we are what we're witnessing today. It would be a mistake. The New York Times described the individual as lost, loss of memory, a child's act of magical thinking in a year of decomposition. Who's the model for the rest of us? Dying at an alarming rate, in solitary, abandoned streets, fragmented into hardly dare imagine. We're drifting like Crusoe, hardly struck by the world breathing, disoriented, and the compass contaminated by failure. Hardly. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elena. And thanks again to Dominique. Wonderful readings, both of you. I really appreciate it. And so now, yeah, please, at this time, if you would like to be seen, we would very much like to see you. So do feel free to turn your video on. And also, yeah, so we will open up if you have any questions. Here's how that works. So if it's, you can raise your hand and be unmuted and then ask your question and so on. You can do that with your actual hand if I can see your video, or if you prefer to leave your video off, which is perfectly fine, there's also a hand raise like icon function that you can use. So with that in mind, and I'm seeing more and more of you, hello, yay. Does anybody have anything, a question? Something they'd like to? No, nothing right now. Anybody? Oh. Well, that's all right too. Oh, yeah. Okay, hold on. Yes.
Peter had his thumbs up on.
Oh, wait.
Oh, there you just went away.
Yeah, there he is.
Okay. Peter?
Yeah.
Hey, okay. Sorry, I missed you.
Hey, this is the right thing to do, right?
Oh, the thumb, that works. Yeah, that's
Okay.
good.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You can only imagine how good I am at teaching via Zoom. Anyway, I guess this is a question for both of you. It seems like, well, there's a lot of places in your poetry. How would you say that place influences how you compose your work? And are there different poems that come out of different places? Not just geographically, but maybe locally within your own homes. And that's it.
Well, for me, place is everything. Susan Howe once said in an interview, "Trust the place to form the voice." And I've been in very different places in my life, and I can't help but get influenced and get to let things around me enter. So, for example, if I was recently at McDowell, and that place, in terms of being a place to write, having a studio to write in, no interruptions whatsoever, probably allowed me to write some of what I was writing because it allowed me to go into a different place. But obviously, I think from scaffolding is very much a place that was influenced because I live here in New York City. And
Yeah, I thought it was particularly interesting. I really loved hearing those poems because for those of us who lived in the city, it feels like each day we wake up in the city, we're living in a whole new New York City, changing that quickly.
yeah, that's why I was interested in reading those, because you see how time and change happens so very rapidly.
Yeah.
Dominique? Oh, you're muted.
I'm on, hold on, there we go. Okay. For some reason
Okay. Thank you. That's a good question. I've always wanted to write more place-based poems. I think the way that space comes up in my work is I was born and raised in El Paso, Texas, and it's a border community, and so I feel like my identity has always been inextricable, like so many people, to the place where they grew up. It's a place where I feel very safe, and even during my MFA program in New Mexico, I was still living in El Paso. So living in the Midwest now is really odd for me because I feel really unmoored. When I try and write poetry now, I feel like my sense of place has shifted so much that I feel like I question things about my identity a little bit more. I feel like different types of introspection shift depending on how much you've based your identity into where you were rooted. And being so far away from my family too, a lot of the time has me questioning a lot. Not that the Midwest is a bad place to live. It's just I have such an affinity for living in a border town. It's so different. So yeah, I think that's how it affects me now.
It's really nice to hear. Thank you both so much for a wonderful reading. Sorry I was late.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Yes.
Hold on, there we go. Thank you so much, Peter. And anybody else have a question for either or Dominique or Elena? Hi, yeah. Let me unmute you. Hi. Okay. Yeah. Mel.
Yeah, I had a question about place. How do you feel that the pandemic has changed our conception of place? I mean, is there still a place?
I believe so, and I say this just because I'm thinking of the way El Paso has been experiencing the pandemic, and I know El Paso's government recently was like begging George Abbott to reconsider the way that he was opening the state, because Latino families in El Paso are often multi-generational. There's so many people living within a home. My brother lived with my mom until very recently. My grandma has lived with us when I was growing up. So the way that COVID is spreading within Latinx communities is so different. And I feel like the way that the pandemic is affecting specific places can't really be overlooked. I feel like, if anything, there's an exaggeratedness of like people situated in their positionalities depending on where they are.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks so much. Anybody else have a question or thought about? Well, hold on, let me just scan here. Part of this is me scanning everybody so I can make sure I'm not missing anybody's hands. Okay, well, thank you so much to everyone for being here. Thank you once again, Dominique and Elena, for wonderful readings. It was really great. It was really incredible, and appreciate you both doing this. So.
Thank you for everything. Yeah, for inviting us.
Yeah, thanks for creating this digital space. I don't think I've ever had friends from different states be able to, of course, ever see me read at the same time.
Yes. It's true.
Yeah, a strange
It's
upside.
quite wonderful.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you again. And now we'll end the meeting. We don't get to hang out now, but you know. But thank you, and hopefully again at Woodland Pattern sometime in the future, soon. All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Great. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Dominique.
Thank you, Elena. That was fantastic.
Oh, yeah, yours too. So good. Thank you.